Listen, just, look, everybody is sitting in their bedroom, their living room, you're all alone. But anytime somebody moves, I mean it not only disrupts the class for them, but it disrupts the class for everybody sitting here. You have to realize that although everybody is in different countries and all over the place, we're all in a group here, and there has to be the discipline of sitting still, because any kind of inorganic movement, you touch your face, your hair, it disrupts the entire class. So please try for the next 5 or 10 minutes to have that discipline of trying to sit still. If you have an itch, just get deeper into the hara, the itch will go away. If there's a little pain, go deeper into the hara, the pain will dissolve. So please try to remember that we're all not sitting here alone, although we are sitting here alone. And there's a class going on and there are people sitting in the class, and every time anyone moves, it disrupts the whole flow of energy in the class. So try to have that discipline, please. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart Niobe.
Yes, Niobe.
Would you talk about letting go of ambitions and desires and just detaching from
Niobe,
desires?
Having ambition in the world, having desire to succeed in the world is not antithetical to having a spiritual life. You understand? It's not in life not to succeed. It's not to have ambition. It's to succeed in the world, and at the same time to build an inner life that is strong enough so that the world doesn't have you. So you can really enjoy the tremendous riches that life has to offer. At the same time, they don't have you. You have built a chakra system inside that is strong enough to detach from it. And that, to me, is a very incredible way to grow, because you will get psychologically, physically, spiritually stronger by having to detach yourself from a bigger situation than you're usually living with. So it's not to have ambition. It's not to succeed in the world. It's not to become some monk living in a cave somewhere that has walked away from everything. It's to live your karma, whatever your karma brings, and then have the ability not to be sucked dry by it, not to be eaten alive by it. That will make one very strong inside. And I think it's really important to understand that material gain and, living in, with nice things, it's not antithetical to a spiritual life. We can have in the world, but the world can't have us. So we have that detachment, that objectivity, that ability to succeed and work out our karma in the world and not be sucked dry by all of the greed and tension and neurosis and anxiety that goes on in the material world. That's really a very incredible way of getting strong inside. And I can honestly tell you, I went through it. When I was younger, I rejected the whole world. I want nothing to do with business, money, and nothing, And then I discovered, what it was to be involved in the business world, to be involved in the generation of money. And at the same time, not to be swept away in it, to be taken apart by it, but to use it as a way of getting stronger in myself. Problem is that people turn material things into God, and they worship money. They worship that kind of success. And then you have all the craziness, the power. It's another one, you know, with this political power and all that nonsense that goes on in the world. People worship that. They strive for that. That becomes the entire, you know, end of their being. And that's what sucks people dry. That's what makes the world crazy. Instead of, hey, I can live nicely, I can enjoy it, I can, you know, allow myself to have a decent dinner a couple of times a week in a restaurant and enjoy it. And not think that, you know, one has to be consumed by eating in restaurants, you know? You're detached from it, but you totally enjoy it. It's God's gift. I mean, I learned that from my teacher, who was a very rich man. He had buildings all over Manhattan he owned, and hugely successful art business. And at the same time, I'll never forget, I mentioned this the other day. I don't know if it was here or somewhere else, but I mentioned this, you know, that I was standing with him on the street, and one of the buildings he owned was burning down. It was on fire. The fire department was there, all these. And he looked at me, he said, and he smiled. He said, Stuart, I must really be getting detached. I feel, you know, I have no emotional involvement in any of this. And I mean, to me, it was an incredible teaching how you can have things in the world and not be attached to them. Enjoy them. And they're not antithetical to having a spiritual life, because I never met anyone who had a deeper spiritual life than my teacher. So I think one has to get over this concept in their brain that a spiritual life and the material world are antithetical to each other. They're not. They're just different energies. That's all they are. And both of those energies can be used to develop our inner life. You know, money is just energy. And it just depends upon how you approach it, how you use it, what you do with it. But it's just energy. And if you begin to live that way and see things that way, it takes a tremendous load off of one. You know, this crazy ambition about becoming a trillionaire. You're a king of the world, you know? And, you know, I always remember that poem by Shelley, you know, about Ozymandias. I came to an antique world and I'm standing on by this tomb of Ozymandias, who once conquered the world. Here lies Ozymandias, king of kings. You know, an extraordinary poem and profound in the way it shows how transient everything is. And certainly the connection with God, which is the, you know, there's nothingness, this ultimate reality, is so much stronger than money, because here lies Ozymandias, king of kings. And how many thousands of kings are buried all over Europe and Asia, and, you know, and time continues to go on. And then Plato wrote about the philosopher king, which was a whole different kind of reality. And to do with really using that power to serve humanity. So what I'm saying is, don't get into your head thinking that these things are in conflict with each other. They're not. It's just energy. All of it is just energy. And it all depends on how we use our material life, how we use our spiritual life. You know, I mean, look, I always believe that a saint, in order to be enlightened, has to surrender their sainthood. You know? I always believe that enlightened people don't know they're enlightened. They just live that way. But they don't get into their brain, I am enlightened. I mean, they just live that way. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart?
Yes.
It's Laura. Can you explain a little bit more what's meant to be detached to money or things?
To be detached from money and things?
Or other things?
Well, you know, look, you know, money is a kind of stimulus that affects every human being, rich and poor alike. And I can tell you, frankly, I've been both rich and poor in my life. I mean, I've lived on the streets, for God's sake, but and I've also lived in palaces, you know? And and one of the things I learned about money is that it's just energy. And it began to work for me, money, when I began to realize what I need to do with it. And it worked for me because it really became a tool that could help me to build a spiritual life. And in learning how to do that, I overcame the fear of money. I told you this many times, you know, when I was living in Texas, I'd been working day and night and setting up classes in prisons and hospital, God knows what I was doing, you know, universities, teaching 2 classes a day at the meditation center, you know, running a business. And when Rudy came down there, he looked at me and he said, "You're not working hard enough." So I said, "Rudy, what should I do?" He said, "Buy that building." I said, "Buy that building?" It was a shopping center. So I said, "Rudy, I have $600 in the bank." He said, "Stuart, anyone can do it with money." And, you know, the building would be a way of supporting the meditation group that I was running. It would be a way of generating money for the group so the group could continue to grow. And a month later, I bought a shopping center after he told me to do this. And what it did for me was that it made me a lot of money. It didn't, you know? What it did for me was it taught me how to overcome the fear of money, the fear of success, the fear of developing my life in the world, and then using whatever developments of my life to serve the people who are closest to me. It could be your family, it could be friends, it could be, for me, it was a spiritual group that I was running. And that enabled me to detach myself from all of this crap that surrounds money. I threw myself into the middle of the Pacific Ocean and I swam for shore, and I really did, you know? And I discovered that I had the strength inside myself to do it, because the one place I would go in all of those financial things that I found myself locked into, I had to go to a higher source of energy to get the strength inside myself, not to allow those situations to take me apart. And it was one after the other. I mean, I'm telling you, you know, it was extraordinary. And it turned money into kind of a comedy, you know. It became something I wasn't afraid of anymore. I remember I ran this kind of junky antique store in Texas, you know, and then after Rudy passed away, about 6 months later, his mother calls me up. "How would you like to buy 2 truckloads of Asian art from me?" I said, "Ray, do you know where I'm living?"
It's 2 o'clock.
I said, "I'm living in the middle of the Baptist Bible Belt here, you know?" I said, "Who am I going to sell that?" He said, "Oh, no, think about it." You know, I thought about it for 10 minutes. I called her back and I said, "Ray, I'll do it." And I went up to New York and I put myself in debt for like $175,000, living in Denton, Texas. And, you know, I mean, today it's like probably a couple of $1 million. This was in 1973, 4. And it taught me not to be afraid of it. I can do this. I can generate the money to repay the debt. And his mother was a godsend for me, because she really taught me by by doing this and making it possible for me to do this, how to overcome the fear of money. I mean, this was from having $600 in the, I mean, I started my business in Denton, Texas with $30, you know? And here I am in debt, you know, for almost $500,000. And it all got worked out. We built a restaurant there that was hugely successful. Hugely. There were lines out the corner, you know, to get into the restaurant. You know, we had all kinds of businesses, bakeries and candy businesses and manufacturing. And it all grew out of anyone could do it with money. And it all had a singular purpose. It was to serve the spiritual situation I was in. And ultimately made it possible to build this extraordinary house that is still in Denton, Texas. So what I'm saying is, the answer to this was not, financial greed. The answer was going in myself in every meditation class and during the day to a higher source of energy to get the strength to do what I was doing. That's the only way I could have done it. Otherwise, it would have become greed and manipulation and, stuff like that. And I said, I don't want to live that way. It taught me how to get to God, material things. I needed them just to survive what I was doing. And I needed the connection with God. So it was the inner work that made all of this possible. And then it was a combination of the spiritual and the material. And I realized there's no separation. One of them serves the other. Depends on how you use them. If you use them the way I'm talking about, you get your enlightenment, dealing with the pressures of your life. And Rudy always told me, he said, a diamond is a product of 50,000 years of the earth's pressure. We all have a diamond in us. And in many cases, we need that pressure in order to mine the diamond. I hope this is clear because it's very important, and it's a problem that so many people have dealing with money in the material world. And, if you have
Stuart, I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
After Rudy said to you, anyone can do with money, what did you do? Did you meditate on that thought?
I needed a $25,000 deposit to buy the building. And I found a way to do it. I raised $25,000. Took me a week, 10 days. I said, holy crap, look what you're doing. And then I borrowed money from people and I paid them all back. That's how I did it. But I had a purpose. You understand? The purpose was to develop this situation so that it could allow the ashram, the meditation center I was running, to grow, to begin to blossom. I remember I had a friend of mine, I opened a restaurant and that became very successful. Then I added a belly dancing club to it. And I'm talking about in Baptist America, I had a belly dancing club there. And the crowds that came to that place, you could not believe the lines that were outside waiting to get into that restaurant. And we had this wonderful woman. She was such a deeply spiritual soul who used to come up and do this dancing 3 times a week. And it brought crowds of people, it brought doctors, lawyers. The mayor came, used to come. Everyone in the town used to come and they loved it, laughing. They had a joyous time there, And who would ever dream an ashram would run a belly dancing club? It was completely absurd and it was wonderful. It's just all these creative, you live and you get these creative inspirations to do things, and you do them, you try it. And then I used to go to the only place I could get the energy to make these things succeed. And that was to a higher source of energy. Every meditation class was going to that source to get the energy to allow this to succeed. And then after 9 years, I realized I'm finished. I have to move on. There was nothing else I could have done in that town. So, okay, I moved back to New York. I was detached. I was really detached. And then in New York, I opened an Asian art gallery that in 2 years became so successful that that it made me more money than what I was making with all these businesses I had in Denton, Texas. And it all came from my inner work. This is what I'm trying to get across to you. Not making money. It came, where do I get the strength to do this without being destroyed by it? That's where it all came from. It was inside myself, going up to a higher source and receiving that energy. Otherwise, I mean, the material world just really destroys people. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart?
Yes.
Can you talk about healing the subconscious mind if there's something buried, maybe from childhood or like a sense memory?
Well, the only answer to that, Larry, is the deeper you go in yourself, all of that stuff comes up. All of that stuff can be released. You can, get free of it. And as you go inside, you uncover, great pockets of regret, repressed energy that is inside that you've buried. And that's a chance to release it and get free of it. We all have it. I still have it. I uncover a thing, oh my God. And suddenly I get released. It's no longer there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions, there'll be a meditation on Thursday, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all. And again, as I always end these sessions, I have a lot of gratitude for every single person who comes to these meditation classes. All of you are there to help me to work deep in myself and to attain what I'm talking about, a direct level with higher energy in the universe that enables me to live my life and at the same time, not to be trapped by my life. Every person who comes here really represents that opportunity for me. And I'm very grateful to all of you, and thank God that somehow some technological genius developed this thing called Zoom. And we can do this, it came out of the pandemic and everything else, And now things are kind of getting quieter here in New York and Connecticut, and I'm going to resume having in-person classes probably by the middle of March. I mean, I know a lot of people live in Europe, they live in, all over Brazil and, and Middle East, and not easy to come. But if you want to, they're going to be available probably from the beginning of March. I'm going to have in-person classes. And that has to do with hands-on healing and all kinds of stuff that's very profound. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to having people come and participate in it. And okay, so God bless you all. And there'll be a meditation on Thursday evening. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.